Hi, this is Emily Freitag, and I'm so excited to continue our AI in action learning tour today with a conversation with Matt Miller, who runs OKO Labs. And OKO is a really interesting product that I'm excited for him to tell us about and to share as part of this tour. And I think OKO turns on its head a lot of people's expectations about what AI's role is in classrooms. So let's begin as we do with all of these, Matt, just by hearing a little bit about you and your story and what brought you to the point of developing OKO.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much for having me, Emily. Super excited for this conversation. Um, yeah, what brought me here? So I come to education technology originally from the tech side of education technology. I was an engineer by training, actually working at the intersection of AI and machine learning and security and privacy early in my career, back in the late 90s, early 2000s. But then spent about a decade at Amplify Education, really delving into kind of all corners of education technology. I was the chief technology officer there and VP of labs, and caught the bug. Like since, and it's now been about almost 20 years that I've been working in education technology. I've had a hard time getting excited about anything else. So really enjoy kind of the opportunity for impact. I also will say that while I have not been at the front of the classroom as a teacher, I was immediately kind of attracted to the education space, having volunteered in some classrooms. My wife is an educator, my grandmother is an educator,
Mhm.
and part of my story is that after my tenure at Amplify, I opened a children's bookshop, brick and mortar children's bookshop with
Mhm.
my wife, where we did a lot of like small group classes and activities in the back. So that's all table setting.
Mhm.
The way that OKO came to be is that when I was kind of figuring out what I would do next, and really thinking about how AI could potentially transform the real like teaching and learning moments in the classroom.
Mhm.
I went out and I asked the people who I know have the answers to all these hard questions about teaching and learning, which are classroom educators and education leaders. That's dozens and dozens of them. It's one question, which was, what would you do if an extra set of hands showed up to help you in the
Mhm.
classroom one day? And what I heard over and over again was, oh, I'd pull a small group, often for some targeted
Mhm.
instruction, targeted work. And this was, in a way, kind of obvious. Small group work is such a powerful tool for differentiating instruction and reaching each and every learner. Uh, but what I found as I dug deeper was that it was really, really hard for educators to pull it off effectively. We're at a
Mhm.
moment where we have pervasive, high quality instructional materials. There are a bunch of core curricula out there across subjects that really recognize the need for group work, the need for discourse, the need for collaboration. But educators struggle to really implement that well, and it's still a bit of a black box.
Mhm.
Uh, either a good collaborator or you're not, or do some collaborative work, and then we'll hear about it later. But we saw a real kind of implementation gap there,
Mhm.
and at the same time, um, I saw that every intervention and ed tech tool available on the market kind of forces educators into this false dichotomy of either like broadcast to everybody, the whole kind of whole
Mhm.
classroom solutions, or individualize, or personalize for each
Mhm.
individual student and risk like isolating those learners,
Mhm.
with a model that in fact only works for, say, 5% of those learners who are
Mhm.
motivated to learn in that way. So really set out to build OKO for the other 95% that really learn best in a social environment, that learn best in a environment that is simultaneously emphasizing academic growth and the core foundational content, but
Hmm.
in a context that is also developing those critical durable skills of collaboration, communication, critical thinking, problem solving. So I just got
Hmm.
really excited about that problem space, and
Hmm.
that's really where OKO came from. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great segue. So let's go to a practical view of OKO. Tell
Yep.
us how this fits into a classroom,
Yep.
how a kid sits down, at what point are they working with OKO?
Yeah, yeah, great. So I'll start from what are the kids experiencing, then we can talk a
Hmm.
little bit more about the implementation model, how they get to that moment. So OKO is only experienced in a group. Sometimes a group of two pair can be a great way to get started, but we like groups to be in the 3 to 5 range.
Hmm.
The groups are typically co-located. We can support remote learners, but really kind of optimize for an in the classroom experience with a group of learners sitting around either a cluster of desks or a table. They're each on typically a Chromebook. OKO works on anything with a browser, a
Hmm.
webcam, and a headset. Because we are interacting, OKO is interacting with the group through voice, through digital on-screen tools, and often using gesture recognition to detect like hand raises and things like that. So the group is seated at the table. They're given a group code by their teacher that's going to focus them in their session on the skills standards that they need support with, whether that's pre-teaching or reteaching, an intervention scenario, practice for kids who are on pace, or extension work for kids who are ready for more. That group is going to type in their group code, and then they're immediately launched into this facilitated collaborative learning experience around the content selected by their educator. And they're working together. So the typical flow of an OKO session is that there's often a problem shared. We're working in maths in grades 3 through 10 today. There's a problem shared with the group. They get some solo time to kind of reflect on that problem, maybe
Hmm.
attempt to solve it, but we don't really emphasize getting it right in that solo time. It's more about thinking about the problem. And then we move into group time, which is where the magic happens, where OKO is
Hmm.
prompting the group to solve together, see if they can work it out and discuss and reach a solution. We're then facilitating that group work. We're giving them feedback. We have a collaboration rubric where we're giving them a score, 1 to 4. How are you doing as a team? And how do you get to the next level? So gamifying a little bit. So that's the OKO experience. But coming back to and I can show you a little bit more when we get into
Hmm.
that segment. But in terms of the implementation model, like when, where, how does this
Hmm.
show up in the classroom? The tip of our spear where OKO is most frequently implemented today is in an intervention setting. So during a win block or an intervention
Hmm.
block, for small group differentiated work that is curriculum aligned and tailored to the needs of each learner. So that's, I'd say, most frequently where there is the time and the space to use OKO, usually with a recommended dosage of 2 to 3 sessions per week.
Hmm.
Each OKO session ranges from 15 to say 30 minutes, depending on
Hmm.
length of a block, what else is going on that day. But what we're seeing now is that while we have a lot of implementations that are bringing OKO into that intervention space, we have more and more that are starting to bring OKO into their core block
Tier
because they
one.
want, yeah, into their tier one
Hmm.
group. Sometimes it's, everybody is in a win block or an intervention block.
Hmm.
Yeah. Often the kids who are not in tier 2 or tier 3 are just left to do whatever. And
Hmm.
the OKO can really engage them, extend.
Hmm. Because you can assign different groups to different problems and
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. An OKO classroom typically has anywhere from, one, if you want to, have
Hmm.
one OKO station, up to
Hmm.
we've seen like 7 simultaneous
Hmm.
groups
Yeah.
in a classroom where they're all working on different, sometimes similar
Yeah.
challenges. Um, but
And
in
you
a
said 15 to 30 minutes is typical?
Yeah, exactly. So now in a core block, tends to be shorter. OKO can
Hmm.
sometimes be like a collaborative warm-up, 10
Hmm.
minutes at the beginning of class to get
Hmm.
kids talking, engaging in discourse, thinking about the
Yeah.
topic about to teach or reviewing something. Sometimes also as a collaborative cool down. So
Hmm.
you can get similar kind of like exit ticket data out of
Hmm.
OKO about
Yeah.
individual
What about
student proficiency. Yeah.
the we do portion of the I do, we do, you do? Do you ever see people sort of using it to do the targeted practice?
Yes, definitely. So that's and that can happen either in the meat of the of
Uh-huh.
a classroom session or in the warm up or in the cool down,
Uh-huh.
depending on classroom rhythms. In say, we love illustrative mathematics. It's one of the curricula that we are most deeply aligned
Yeah.
with. Um, there's a lot of very careful orchestration
Yeah.
with the activities and at the core of an IM lesson. And so where
Which
we
is
more
one of the biggest challenges people implementing IM often
it's
report.
it's a big challenge, and we are
Hmm.
looking when we're looking closely at starting to cover more of those types of routines
Hmm.
that happen in those those activities, all those turn and talks and
Hmm.
um, um, different activities within IM.
Yeah.
But we're more often today being used as either a warm up or a cool down
Okay.
in that setting, and that can be practice for the kids who need practice because practice
Hmm.
is another challenge that educators struggle to do enough of in
Hmm.
an IM classroom. But it can also be to really emphasize just differentiation. That's one of the things I
Hmm.
hear often is that intervention, RTI,
Hmm.
is really hard in an IM classroom.
Yeah.
We all love educators love the kind of very low floor, very high ceiling types of problems and that approach to IM. But I hear from so many teachers that are like, well, I have kids who are 2 or 3 grade levels
Yeah.
behind or kids that are two
And
or
the
three grade
access
levels
points.
ahead.
Hmm.
Yeah. And so we're there to help kind of bridge that
Great.
gap.
Well, why don't you
Yeah.
show us some of what this looks like? And as you're pulling it up, I do think our team, when we observed it, were struck by just the very social design of OKO. I think so many of us have this image of ed tech as kids alone working on a computer with the headphones on. And OKO did not feel like that at all. It felt incredibly interesting from a social dynamic standpoint. So, if you could talk to some of how you built OKO to do that when you show us, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, let me pull up OKO here. I'll start by showing you what educators experience. And so this is our educator dashboard. Each kind of tile on this group management screen is kind of the an individual group code. Educators can easily copy paste that into their LMS. They often write these group codes on the whiteboard or have a
Hmm.
presentable or sometimes a printed table topper that gives kids a code that they're going to just type into their student
Core
version
app.
of the
Hmm.
web app. And for each of these group codes, educators can select the particular skills and standards that they want that group to be focused on. So today, that's through the skills and standards. It's worth noting that we're about to launch our IM aligned version of this, and it's
Hmm.
not exclusively IM. We've built a scope and sequence alignment tool that will take in kind of any scope and sequence, and instead of selecting from the standards, you can select from the scope and sequence what lesson are you on, and then easily get the pre-configured groups for all of the kind of building on and building
Hmm.
towards and practice skills in the middle. So educators can preview kind of what the questions are here. All this content is high quality content. We have a partnership with the Assessments Foundation. So these are all
Hmm.
professionally authored items. And if you want, if these items are looking like not quite right, we have built in the coherence map. So from
Mm-hmm.
SAP, so you can
SAP.
can easily navigate to some of the prerequisite skills. If that seems a more appropriate skill, you can click into that and just
Mm-hmm.
save that as the standard that this group will focus on. So that's the um, group settings page. Fairly
Yeah.
straightforward, fairly easy.
And I don't have
Um,
to roster as a teacher because the group
so
code gives kids
that's
the
right. That,
rostering. So it's pretty
yeah.
usable.
Yeah, we do have some tools to help support educators with group recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
Those are, easy. They're taking in diagnostic assessment data,
Mm-hmm.
scope and sequence. Where are you? What
Mm-hmm.
is coming up in your pacing? And then also OKO sessions and our session reports, which I'll show you in a moment.
Mm-hmm.
That have a lot of rich data about how students are collaborating with one another and also their math proficiency and how that's developing. And then we take all that and can spit out a set of recommended groupings
Mm-hmm.
for their classroom, kind of like a playlist for the week.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'll come back to some of our class insights and session reports, but I wanted to jump over to our student experience so you can get a look at that. Um, this is a easier kind of clickable version. The live
Mm-hmm.
version is always more fun, uh,
Mm-hmm.
but it's best seen with students as you and your team have gotten to see at some of our school partners. So um, you asked a question though, and I wanted to pause here answer like what's behind creating this like social experience. OKO is really only built for a group environment. If one student shows up on the login screen here,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to say that they need to wait for the rest of their peers to
Mm-hmm.
come and join them. So it's only a social experience.
Can't
And
Zoom with yourself. Yeah.
can't Zoom with yourself, exactly. You can't have discourse with yourself. Like I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate that there are some emerging kind of AI tools out there that are getting kids to say, explain their thinking to a
Mm-hmm.
chatbot verbally, and that's a step in the right direction. There are others that are, prompting kids to discuss with a peer and then
Mm-hmm.
bringing them back
Mm-hmm.
to the AI or to the chatbot to capture their reflections. We really wanted to capture the nuances of the group work itself,
Mm-hmm.
of the discourse, of the interactions between learners and amongst learners. And so, yeah, you can really only do that in a small group.
Mm-hmm.
Motivates what we're doing. So once everybody's there, OKO is going to greet everyone, introduce this Let's Talk challenge. It's our most popular activity. And students would hear OKO through their headsets.
Mm-hmm.
So everything you're seeing in these speech bubbles is said aloud by OKO. And they're first prompted to enter solo time and reflect on the first problem. And we have some kind of suggestions here. No talking,
Mm-hmm.
pick your best answer. Don't worry about making mistakes. And then, kind of a prompt to reflect. What ideas or questions will you share with your group? And um, we then have some timing there. Students can easily get more time. We don't want them to feel time pressure, although we do need to move the
Mm-hmm.
group along. So they can get more time if they want, but then they can select an answer and reflect. Was
Mm-hmm.
this too hard? Was this tough, but I'm ready to
Mm-hmm.
talk it out? Or am I feeling like I got this? So
Mm-hmm.
I'll say this was tough, but I'm ready to talk it out. And I'm going to get some tailored encouragement here.
Mm-hmm.
Great questions are just as valuable as great answers. Think about what you'll ask your team. And then we enter team time. So here's where OKO is going to give some suggestions, some prompts. The version you'll see here is what they'll see their first time through OKO in a
Mm-hmm.
group. We
Mm-hmm.
actually partnered deeply with the Math Narrative Project, a great research-backed initiative around how to create a positive math mindset. So much of what
Mm-hmm.
you see here is language we developed with their research-backed guidance. So just remember, don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's how we learn. Be kind. We're all in this together. Use math words to explain your thinking. Tell us why.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're all seeing the same problem, and this
Mm-hmm.
time they need to talk it out and answer it together. They do have some tips here, some reminders of those ground rules, some discussion starters or sentence stems. Um, we do, I'll show you that later. We do again have that timer, and we're now encouraged to select another answer.
Mm-hmm.
And OKO, um, there's celebration, of course, if they all get it right, and we'll ratchet up the
Mm-hmm.
difficulty for the group. But if not, OKO is going to prompt them through another round of team time in order to converge on the correct answer. It's also going to give a little hint, so
Mm-hmm.
conceptual hints. Name what the concept is here. Um, Explain a key term. Here we're describing the median,
Mm-hmm.
and then sometimes like an entry point into the problem. So here's a way to begin with the
Mm-hmm.
median. It's first order the numbers from least to greatest. Um, Now they have another opportunity to discuss and reach consensus on the solution. OKO will also eliminate an incorrect answer. So let me give you a hint. B is not
Mm-hmm.
correct. Students can pull up that hint again that OKO just shared, get those tips again, see a definition of that key term, and it's all kind of universal design for learning principles around multiple modalities and supporting all learners. And then, you'll see often OKO will prompt an individual learner to bring their voice into the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
We often doing that for one of two reasons. One is for equity of voice. We want everybody to be heard, so we'll
Mm-hmm.
often encourage a quiet learner to participate and see if we can get them to explain their thinking. Also, we sometimes see that if a group is struggling and we know that an individual learner got it right during their solo time, we might
Mm-hmm.
invite their voice in to share their
To
rationale.
help. Right.
Great way
It
to.
when we saw it, it felt like about half the time it was like a strong response that was getting called in, and half the time it was like
Yep,
a incorrect response
that's right.
that the group was helping to fix.
That's right. That's right. And we
Hmm.
like to see a mix of those, and it's often
Hmm.
like messy, and what we
Hmm.
care about, and what I'll show you in a bit as we talk about impact. What we care about is that there's good discourse happening, and that
Hmm.
they are deepening their conceptual understanding through productive struggle, and that
Hmm.
means normalizing mistakes and not immediately jumping in to correct mistakes. One of the
Hmm.
frequent kind of sort of mistakes, I guess that call it a misconception with educator-led group work. Because often there's
Hmm.
a little too much intervention. We joke that
Hmm.
OKO is really good at wait time and giving the group
Hmm.
space
Hmm.
to sit with a problem and struggle
Yeah.
through it, which is great. Um, so let's see.
Yeah.
So
Let's see
we have
what happens at the
another.
end.
So
Okay.
here, yeah, there's a celebration. So it's
Hmm.
animated when you see it in the student
Live. Yeah.
version. Um, and this is a really powerful tool that we introduced a few months ago, which is a student-facing teamwork and collaboration score. So
Hmm.
OKO is now based on the observed discussion. Again, we have real-time transcript of each student's speech. We
Hmm.
have each student's multiple attempts on the problem. We know what the problem is. We're then telling the group, hey, congratulations, you got teamwork level 3. Here's why.
Hmm.
Here's a quote that we observed. And that recognition is really powerful. What's also really powerful is we're giving a hint of how to get to the next level.
Hmm.
Keep building on this by explaining your thinking clearly so everyone understands the why behind each step. So we're
Hmm.
helping them not only with their foundational math, but we're also helping them become better teammates, better
Yeah.
collaborators. As I'll show you as we introduce this, we've seen some dramatic improvements in this collaboration
Yeah.
score time. Yeah,
It is very interesting to me, the signals we send to children through the product design about what gets rewarded. And so I think this is a very interesting example of rewarding collaboration, which is, that's different than rewarding the right answer or
right.
rewarding fast answers or even rewarding growth. So I think it's super interesting to see.
100%. 100%.
Awesome. Yeah.
Um,
Anything else you want to show?
well, just closing out, we have a reflection. This is reported back, as is
Hmm.
the collaboration score to the educator. Either I need more help with this math, I feel like I'm getting better, but I need more practice. And then for us,
Hmm.
and all this language is very intentional. Great, I'm ready to help
Hmm.
someone. It's really
Hmm.
about, encouraging that, giving help, seeking help,
Hmm.
and normalizing that.
Great.
Um,
Yeah. So you told us a little bit about, oh, you want to show us the insights. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to show you a little bit about what teachers then get to see
Hmm.
afterwards. So this is a kind of weekly summary. I have one session in this particular week, but it'll show you kind of how much activity has happened in your classroom over the course of that week across multiple classes.
Hmm.
Pull some key quotes. This is meant to be projectable, to share with the
Hmm.
classroom. And then some summary of which students are doing well with their math
Hmm.
discourse and collaboration and why. Uh, some recommendations for the students in each
Hmm.
group. And then also same thing around math proficiency. We want to show
Hmm.
the standards that we're engaged with and who is at a level of needing more support, needing more
Hmm.
practice, or ready to lead.
Hmm.
This is all helping to inform next steps. Um, and this is all built on these much more detailed session reports that we have for each individual OKO
Hmm.
session. This is giving, kind of summary, kind of TLDR, what happens at a glance, some recommended next steps, their teamwork level, highlights if there was any
Hmm.
student star, we'll pull a quote. And then it goes very deep into like each individual student. You can actually go even deeper here on how they did on each problem, um, and thumb through kind of each student.
Hmm.
You can even drill down into each individual question and see what the discussion was, and how each student did on each round of problem
Hmm.
solving.
And how many questions in a typical session? Is it just one, or are you getting through multiple
It's
questions?
it's it's anywhere from a handful up to like maybe a dozen
Okay.
on a longer session. We want to
Hmm.
emphasize spending more time in discussion and really
Hmm.
getting to that conceptual understanding of the problem rather than rushing through
Hmm.
a bunch of problems. So, but it really depends on the session length, depends on the
Yeah.
content, whether in multi-step problems or more simple kind of naked arithmetic problems, that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. Yeah.
I mean, we saw 30 minutes of uninterrupted discussion time, and
Yeah.
I haven't been in a math classroom where I've seen that volume of uninterrupted discussion in a long time. So I was pretty stunned by how much the kids stuck with it and were really very into it.
Yes, and that's what we hear a lot. And if you want a quiet classroom where kids are sitting in rows, sitting in desks, they're on their one-to-one,
Hmm.
tool, whatever that is. OKO's not for you. If
Hmm.
you're, want to see fewer teachers at the front of the room, teachers circulating, noisy, boisterous classrooms where
Hmm.
kids are arguing about math, high-fiving each other,
Hmm.
really getting into heated discussion about how to solve a problem. Like that's what we
Hmm.
are all about creating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Great. Well, let's talk about impact.
Yep.
And you shared with us, I think, very clearly the job that you hope this product does, which has to do with group work and increasing collaboration and learning. But if you want to get more precise, sort of like what is the desired impact that you hope OKO will achieve, and how's it going against that
Yep.
aspiration?
We have two bottom lines. One is, of course, achievement gains in math. We want to see students growing. And of course, our theory of action is that through discourse and collaborative learning that can achieve, significant gains, and the
Hmm.
research is backing that up. The other bottom line is development of durable skills. And
Hmm.
so with every study we've done, I'll talk about those in a moment, we are always measuring both growth, academic growth, and social emotional
Hmm.
growth. So,
Hmm.
most recently, the measure that we've been using for that is reductions in math anxiety,
Hmm.
which we know is key to supporting
Hmm.
learners through their development in math, supporting them as collaborators. And so, in a study we did, we've been partnered with WestEd for quite some time now. We've done several
Hmm.
studies with them. We saw over a student population size of close to 300 students, even in a short implementation of a few weeks, we saw gains of between 7 and 11%, depending on the student population, from pre to post. This was focused on an implementation around fractions in fourth
Hmm.
grade. We
Hmm.
also saw
And that
statistically
pre-post are like the unit assessments, or is that your
that was
state
a
test?
specific fractions battery
Okay. Hmm.
that we used to assess, before and after treatment.
Hmm.
So it was not the in unit
Hmm.
or unit assessment. Um, then we also saw in pre-post student surveys significant reductions in math anxiety, which was
Hmm.
really exciting. So seeing
Hmm.
those two together
Fractions
is really
probably has the highest math anxiety. I could
100%.
imagine. So that I'm sure would have been triggered.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So those are the bottom lines we care about.
Hmm.
We're now in the midst of a randomized control trial. So the prior research is
Hmm.
SO3 research, evidence and
Hmm.
promise, really exciting results.
Hmm.
We're now broadening that to a randomized control trial that we're conducting in partnership with Hamilton County in
Hmm.
Tennessee,
Hmm.
uh, where we're looking at those same outcomes, but we're measuring across a longer treatment period, so full semester long implementation. We're using
Hmm.
map data pre to post, and we're also measuring those social emotional
Hmm.
development as well. And looking at teaching practice. That's another
Hmm.
key research question for us is like, are the sort of collaborative practices that OKO is helping to develop amongst learners and the recommendations that OKO is supporting for educators, are
Hmm.
those sort of infusing into instruction in
Hmm.
non-OKO time? We want to
Yeah.
see that as well.
I
So,
was going to ask
so
about that. Do you have a aspiration for a teaching practice impact?
yes, although we'll have to do this again in a few months
Hmm.
when we have the results from that study, so I can share what we're
Hmm.
what we're seeing. The jury is still out,
Yeah.
but what we want to see, and we can certainly talk about some of those practices. What we want to see is that there is more group work happening,
Hmm.
whether it's on OKO or not.
Yeah.
We want to see more differentiation. We want to see more learners feel like they have not only agency in their learning experience, but
Hmm.
also that they are getting instruction that is meeting their needs.
Hmm.
And the onus is really on educators to be a
Hmm.
part of that,
Yeah.
part of that process for students. So a whole set of those practices that lead to that more personalized learning experience.
I was struck by how much the design of this tool also positions peers as sources of authority,
Yeah.
and expertise. And I think Um, that's not the most common models we're seeing in our tour.
Mm.
In our tour, we're seeing a lot of models that sort of repeat what we see in schools already, which is, go to your teacher for the authority on this topic. Or we see models that are replacing that with a bot becoming a, source of authority. But I think it's very interesting that you are making their peers the
Yeah.
source of the answers.
Yeah.
Have you seen, I don't know what the question is, um, but I think the question is, what do you think that's going to do to the way kids learn?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, my hope and what the research would suggest is that by engaging in social peer-based learning, that anxiety goes down. We're
Hmm.
normalizing that productive struggle. We're normalizing help seeking from
Hmm.
peers. We're normalizing the making of mistakes. We're
Hmm.
normalizing help giving, supporting a peer who's stuck. And we know that when that anxiety level goes down, that the receptiveness to learning, the ability to absorb material, the ability to develop a deeper conceptual understanding of the content goes up. So
Hmm.
that's what we expect to see. And I mean, there's the long-held adage that all learning is social, all learning is
Hmm.
emotional. Um, we believe that, and we want to support
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of what we hope to see.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
great. Well, thank you so much, Matt. We're excited to keep learning about OKO as it grows and evolves. I guess let's end there. Anything notable you want to share about your product roadmap and what you're tackling next?
Well, the thing we're really obsessed with right now is curriculum alignment. We recognize OKO's place in the market as a supplemental.
Hmm.
We know that too many schools and systems have kind of inherited a Franken system.
Hmm.
You can call it that.
Hmm.
It's way too fragmented in the classroom with too many
Hmm.
tools needed to solve all the missing pieces in core curricula.
Hmm.
So I think it's incumbent upon really any product developer to align deeply with core instruction.
Hmm.
So that's really a big focus of ours in the tools that we're providing educators, in the content itself,
Hmm.
the constructs and learning models that are used that need to be aligned with the language of a particular
Hmm.
curriculum. So it's a really big area of focus for us right now. So I mentioned randomized control trial in Hamilton County, and we
Hmm.
were thrilled to see some preliminary data coming out of that implementation around the growth of in our internal collaboration score. So we have our
And this is the
4 point
OKO generated score at
OCO
the end.
automatically generated
Yeah.
4 point score
Hmm.
everywhere from the level one, which is free agents, up to level
Hmm.
four, the dream team,
Hmm.
where they're exceeding expectations. And we're bringing into this score not only the actual transcript of student
Hmm.
discussion, but also the standards of mathematical practice
Hmm.
and the NCTM practices and processes that really emphasize discourse. So it's a very
Hmm.
research-backed kind of rubric here.
Hmm.
And what we see is in the early days of an implementation, level one is often either like, completely off-topic discussion
Hmm.
or
Getting
um,
used to it.
sometimes toxic, it
Uh-huh.
happens. Um,
Testing the testing the
ex-
response.
exactly. But level two is pretty solid. There's some attempts to explain thinking. Maybe not
Uh-huh.
everybody is participating. Maybe there's some misconceptions that are going unrecognized. Level three is good, very solid. And level four is equitable participation across the group.
Yeah.
Some real good diagnoses of misconceptions, good thoughtful rationale that align to the learning standards. And what we're seeing, there was spring break in here one week,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
what we're seeing over the course of an implementation is a significant improvement in that
Hmm.
collaboration. And
Hmm.
this data I should share is across 10 schools and about 300 students that are
Hmm.
using OKO regularly. So really exciting to see this sort of validation. And again,
Yeah.
the learning gains, because we do pre-post with map, middle of year and end of year map.
Yeah.
Those will come soon, but really excited to see
You'll
this
see
post.
more.
Yeah.
Great. Well, we look forward to continuing to see where you go and learn about where that leads for kids and for educators. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Emily.